Hello and welcome to Terror Talk on Terror Express. I'm Jason Bradford, and today we are talking to a return guest who's no stranger to the Terror Express or Terror Talk. Welcoming back is Jimmy Presley, author of A Bloody Halloween. And today we are going to be talking about our favorite, my favorite, definitely movie, Friday the 13th, Part 3. Hello, Jimmy, and welcome back to Terror Talk.
Hey, Jason, thanks for having me.
Always a pleasure. Always, always, always. So today you and I decided we had a conversation. We decided that we wanted to talk about Friday the 13th Part 3 because it's an installment that a lot of fans love. They clamor over it. It's a fan favorite. I know there's going to be some people out there who think it's the worst entry, that the acting is bad, which to me adds to the wonderful cheese of Part 3. Um, so let's jump into Friday the 13th Part 3, and what is it that you love most about it?
Oh man, uh, you know, it's just one of those movies where you talk about the '80s, even though it was the early '80s, getting captured kind of like on film for what it was. Not just at like Higgins Haven where it took place, but when they go to the market at the start where the couple gets killed, and they go to the store later, Shelley and
Hmm.
Vera. It's just got that overall '80s feel that I
Oh
loved
yeah.
about film. And that to
Yeah.
me is what captures me the most, honestly.
Hmm. Yeah. It does. It's like a time capsule when you watch it. The fashion was lazy, the hairstyles were lazy, which added to the charm, I think. And to me, the cast of Part 3 and Part 5 are my two favorite casts. But Part 3, it's like if you were able to go and spend time in a movie with these characters, obviously the day before all this shit happened, you don't want to be there for the carnage. But I think the cast of Part 3 would be a fun cast to hang around. I think that can be said for most of the early installments, but there's just something about Part 3 to me that's magic.
Mhm.
As Higgins Haven is just a place that I would love to be able to visit, hang out, drink, not get killed.
Oh yeah, exactly. I just heard that they were actually, I don't know if they've done it or they're going to, but rebuild because I know it had burnt down and
Yeah,
I heard they're
yeah,
rebuilding it.
I heard that. That's awesome. Yeah, you heard it had burned down. Do you know the story behind that?
No, I don't even think they ever released a story. Like they couldn't figure out how it happened. I don't think, unless I could be
Well,
wrong, but
there was actually a documentary, and I don't know the name of the person who released the documentary. It is on YouTube. I'll see if I can find it and put the information here in the description. There were some hikers in the woods, a couple of teenagers, early 20s that have found the house. It was cold out. They thought it was a real house with a real working fireplace. Obviously, it wasn't a real working fireplace, and the house caught on fire and it burned down,
oh,
which is
ouch.
really sad. And it also makes you think when you watch the scenes with like Shelley, poking in the fire, and there's some behind the scenes photos where the fire is burning. It's like, how do they burn the fire in the movie if it wasn't a real working fireplace? I imagine possibly like a temporary flue.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was just thinking. I was picturing all kinds of ways in my mind, and
Yeah.
that's what I picture. Yeah.
Now, who's your favorite character in the movie?
Oh man, it's so funny. We talked about this the other night because
Uh-huh.
we do talk. It changes so often, and I want to be. I want to be honest. You may have to edit all this out, but God, it's tough. I really like that whole cast.
Hmm.
It's weird because we talked about, and I guess we'll get into that later, Final Girls. But my honest to God favorite character in that movie is probably it's a tie between Debbie and Chili. I just liked watching them. I don't know why. There was something about the way they portrayed their characters.
Yeah, I think Debbie, um, she's Tracy Savage is a fantastic person. Shelley, to me, Shelley, played by Larry Zerner, he was the character that I can most relate to. I was that oddball. I was the one who was always fucking around with practical effects, trying to scare people. And
Oh yeah,
it reminds me of the scene with the hatchet in his head when he screamed and they ran up and he fell out of the wardrobe. That would have been me. I am
yeah,
the one that Chili was called a jerk.
yeah.
But my favorite character. not only in the movie, but the entire franchise. I don't know why. There's something about Vera that I just the moment I saw her, I was smitten by Vera. And I mentioned this to you in a conversation of all the women in the franchise that gets killed, that Jason kills. It's like, how can he look at Vera and not think, well, maybe I'll let this one live because her beauty is exquisite. I couldn't destroy that, but he does. He takes her out pretty iconically. But I don't know. There's just something about Catherine Parks that it's like she just got this beauty that you can't look away from. To me, she's
Yeah.
stunning.
Yeah, you enlightened me there. They're not literally, as I told you on the phone. It was I never realized. Well, there were so many things you enlightened me to. But Vera, I liked her. I mean, you talked about how a lot of people kind of labeled her as the bad
The bitch.
woman.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And we had a good conversation about that. And I think
Yeah.
me
Well,
and you agreed that.
let's talk about it again.
Yeah,
A lot of fans when they talk about part three, Vera gets the bad rap because the way she treated Shelley. And in Vera's defense, I have to take her side on this, not just because it's Vera. I think this would be with any scenario. If someone's standing up and being honest and saying, "Look, you and I are not going to happen this way. Let's not waste our time. I don't want to lead you on. I just want to be upfront and honest." What's wrong with that? Why would that label somebody as a bitch or as a bad person when they're just being honest and upfront about their feelings? If I'm not attracted to you and you think there's a chance, what's wrong with me putting you in the right from the very get-go? Hey, this is not going to happen, but we can be friends. I like you, but it's
yeah,
not going to be beyond that. It's not going to become physical. It's not going to be sexual. It's just that's not going to happen. And I don't understand why people label her as a bitch because she knew what she wanted and she was honest about it, or she knew what she
yeah.
didn't want and she was honest about it.
She did. I think people. I think I don't want to say people are closed minded, but they're like they see this franchise and they obviously think every woman is going to be the same to some degree, except for the final girl. And in this
Hmm.
case, it wasn't the situation. I think they started playing off her character at the beginning, even though her mom was like fussing
Hmm.
at her, obviously for some reason when she left. You could tell that there was a tight family bond, something going on
Yeah,
there. And
yeah,
I think it just played all the way through, even at the market when her and Shelly, were basically attacked by the bikers.
mm, yeah,
I mean, you could just see she was a girl. And
yeah.
I think that's what was
Eh,
portrayed.
Have you ever seen the screenplay for part three?
Yeah, I have a copy of it somewhere, a
So then you're
digital.
familiar. I want to talk about Vera's death in the screenplay for the listeners who may not know. Um, the original, obviously in the movie, what you see is her dropping the wallet and walking out ankle deep water and then getting harpooned. In the screenplay, it was much more elaborate. She was actually in the lake. Like think of Sandra in part seven in the lake. That's how it was supposed to look. Um, she goes out for the wallet. She comes up and she sees Jason with the harpoon. And you're out. You can also think of Willa Ford in the Friday the 13th, 2009, when he's
Yes.
standing there watching her. Well, in the original part three, he was supposed to aim the spear gun at her, and she would keep going under the water to avoid the spear gun. And obviously, eventually, Vera's going to get too tired, and she'll come up, and he ends up shooting her anyways. But time wise, budget wise, all that stuff, they obviously had to cut that back to make it work, and we got what we see. But there would have been some amazing underwater shots of
Mhm.
Catherine Parks, coming up and catching her breath and going back under. Jason Sandler taunting her. That would have been a terrifying sequence to be able to get. But
Yeah,
unfortunately,
yeah,
they spent all of their money in advertising and promotion.
yeah, yeah. They did the big 3D thing.
They sure
If I'm,
did.
I don't, I'm not to cut you off. I don't. If I'm not mistaken, I had the novelized version of Part Three also, and I wish I'd
Hmm.
kept it.
I
I
wish I
think
had
it
to.
was. Yeah. Oh, I think the death was the same as you just said in the script. Kind of up and down out of the water, cat and mouse almost. So
And I don't remember the book. I had the book when I was a teenager, but stupid irresponsible me. I had the book, I had all of the Friday 13th books, which are worth like upwards of a grand used
yeah,
right now. But I do. That's also where you find out Chili has a twin sister named Pepper. How cute
right.
is that? But
Yeah.
But we're also discussing Chris. Now, Chris is a favorite final girl of a lot of people. She's mine. Like I said, part three's got a lot of my favorites in it. It's got my favorite cast, my favorite final girl, my favorite Jason, my favorite location. But Chris, I know we're talking about this, and what was it about Chris that you said bothered you?
Yeah, well, like I said, I have nothing but love for Dana, and I thought she did a great
Yeah.
job.
Hmm.
I think the way she portrayed the character, I actually had more empathy for the other characters. I mean, Vera, excuse me, to me was uh, the all around trying to be the nice girl, trying to make people feel better, and Chili was just who she was. And Debbie, of course, was pregnant supposedly, according to the scene in the van. So I just had more empathy for the other characters. Chris just came off as, and I get it, she was scared to return,
Hmm.
which we'll get into that. I know because of something that happened in the woods, and but the whole
Hmm.
time she's just scared and jumpy, and you would think I would have more empathy for her, but I just couldn't. And I know someone's going to get on me for this, maybe even Dana if she hears it, but I just I couldn't do it. I love the fight at the end. I thought it's the greatest of the whole series next to Tina in part seven. But uh, yeah, she's just not my final girl. I just
Yeah.
that's my best way of explaining it. I
Oh,
can't
I,
empathize.
I think the reason why she is my favorite final girl was excuse me, hold on a second. Sorry, I didn't want to be too loud with the clearing of the throat here. I think I'm battling a cold, but I think the reason why Chris is my favorite final girl was because she was given the option to run quite a few times in this movie, but she decided to surprise Jason and attack him and fight back, like standing outside the cabin door with the log. And when he walks out, she takes him by surprise. Up in the barn, she could have, when she whacked him with a shovel, she could have ran out, but she didn't. She tied the noose around his neck and she threw him over the edge. I mean, things like that, I think was the reason why I fell in love with Chris because she really gave Jason back physically, whereas Tina in part seven, she whoops his ass, but and no offense to Tina, but she just gets to stand there. She's not really physical like Chris was. She
That's
had her
true.
telekinesis, but Chris was very, very physical. And I think at the very end when Jason's hanging there and he pops up and he takes his mask off and she cowers in the corner. I think up until that point she didn't realize who the attacker was, and when she realizes that was who attacked her those years back, the fear that she was dreading the entire trip there was became a realization. It happened. It was true. It was right in front of her again. And I think that's why she started going a little bit mad. And if Ali hadn't been there, I think Jason could have gotten her.
Yeah. Yeah,
Which,
when we talked about it, I'm sorry, you told me, like I told you, that was just something that I didn't grasp after all these years. Now, usually I'm good at grasping stuff like that, but I never grasped the fact that, yeah, she was face to face, and he knew it. He knew he had her. I mean, like you were talking about, when he lifts the mask up, he actually grins at her, and
yeah,
I mean, I still respect her. Like I said, I love the fight, but she's not my favorite final girl. But you made one heck of a case the other night, and it really made me rethink for the last few days. Yeah, I'm gonna give Chris props. She was badass either way, but yeah, I mean, she, like
well,
you said, she had choices to run or fight, and she wanted to end it. But
yeah,
anyway, yeah,
yeah. I think if you consider the character beyond the movie, I think Dr. Ginny Fields has probably got her hands full with a lot of patients that underwent her experiences as well. Two quick. Well, first, before I ask you two quick questions here, I think I wanted to also mention that there was the scene that was shot, and it was also in the Simon Hawke novelization of part three, where Jason does kill Chris. He cuts off her head, and in the book, they put the point of view in Jason's mind where he's seething with anger, and in his mind, he has this moment where he's imagining killing Chris, and he chops off her head, and I believe he dismembered her in the book. So we did get a little bit of that film, but the footage was lost, and now all we have are stills, which I'm going to share here if you were watching on YouTube. But I do want to ask you two questions, that come up a lot in conversation, and the horror groups about part three. The first question is, when in the beginning of part four in the morgue, Axel is eating his donut or whatever that pastry looking thing is with the EMTs, and he says it was a real cute girl, and the other character says was a real cute girl, and Axel, lovable Axel, he says, "Oh, she still is. All you gotta do is go over there and, I think he says, pull down your pants." Is what I hear when I'm listening to him. But I've never had it confirmed. But regardless, who do you think the cute girl is under the sheet that Axel was referring to?
Yeah, I remember talking about this because I wanted to say that was probably Debbie. I think we got because she was kind of the one that they were going for.
Hmm.
That had gotten murdered. That probably was the looker for the film, and I think we talked about how, and you'll have your opinion on this, but Vera kind of had the eye gouged. So I mean,
Yeah,
I think it
yeah.
goes either way. I think it was one of the two, but
I
you
don't think
know,
it was Vera. Like I said, she had this exquisite beauty, but with an eye gouged out, I just can't see her.
right.
I mean, with Axel, I'm saying I can't see Axel being enthralled by that. Oh, of course, I'm thinking with the sane mind. I'm not into necrophilism, but uh, if I think that the empty socket would be a turnoff if I was.
Yeah, Axel was
Def,
obviously on a different level than us either way. So
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But I think personally, it could have been Debbie, but I think it was Fox because when you watch the movie, Fox seems to be the one who would have the least amount of physical damage, and she wasn't too bloody. If with the pitchfork removed, she would have cleaned up easy, whereas Debbie would have been blood soaked with, the wet terry cloth robe and the open gaping chest wound.
yeah,
And like I said, Vera had the eye patch, and I don't know what happened to Chili, but that's another point. And it's not a question I was thinking of, but let's talk about this. Why did he remove Chili's clothes? Out of all the movies, Chili is the only character he stripped down, obviously naked because all her clothes were in that bloody bathtub that Chris finds. I'm wondering what is about Chili that he had to strip her bare and soak her bloody clothes in the tub.
I think Jason. This is just from what I've gotten after all the years of watching the movies, and I'm thinking back to Psycho. Obviously there's a mother thing there, and I think Chili. I think she was probably a little bit older than the rest of them, and I
Hmm.
don't know why he would have stripped her, but I think there's something in Jason's head. I think he saw her more as the mother. I mean, she was even wearing a blue sweater, if I'm not mistaken, or
Yeah,
something
like
along
sweatshirt.
those lines. And
Yeah.
yeah, and that I always tied it into somehow being related to the mom. Why stripper? I don't know, but he is kind of a psychopathic killer. So I don't know, but that's just crossed my mind.
Yeah.
That it might have
I've
something
always
to,
been I've always been baffled about that. And but
yeah,
the other question that I wanted to ask you was also in the opening sequence of part four. As the camera moves beyond the waiting room, you can see a young girl crying, embracing what appears to be her mother. I have always pictured that being as someone specific. Have you ever thought of who that might be?
yeah. I mean, she was pretty hysterical, and the mom
Hmm.
was, and probably the dad was sitting there too. I think they were pretty upset. I
Yes,
think it was the hospital, it was the local one. It was a small town. I think it was Chris sitting
I
there.
think it was too.
Yeah,
Some fan theories that could be. A lot of people think it's Chris. Other people think it could just be uh, a family member of one of the other cast members. Like could have been Debbie's sister, or it could have been uh, you know, a relative of Chili or, anybody. But I do believe it was Chris, the actress they got to play her. To me, sounded a lot like her.
very much. Yeah.
I reached out to Catherine Parks to come on the show. Hopefully, I can get her on an episode of the Terror Express. I think it would be cool if I might possibly reach out to Paul Kratka as well and invite him on. I would love to interview as many of the Friday the 13th alum as possible because it is a franchise. It's magical. It's something that I revisit on a regular basis. If I go more than a week without watching at least one of the films, I start to feel
Yeah.
like I'm doing something wrong in life. If
Well, I
that's
know. I
that
know.
makes any sense to the Friday fans out there.
Yeah, I think they all get that. I know I do. I think that franchise, it literally like enthralled and captured a whole generation, and that generation, which is us, we're showing it to the next, and now the next generation even, and it's amazing how strong, even after the lawsuit, it's been dead for so long that how many people are looking forward to something else, even young people. So
Yeah.
it
And
speaks for itself.
I think that would be a great segue into 13 Fanboy. Let me mention this really quick. There's a movie out there, listeners, if you're not aware. Tracy Savage from Part 3 is in a movie called 13 Fanboy with a dozen other Friday the 13th cast members from the full franchise.
Yes.
You can check that out. It's on Tubi. It's on all the major streaming platforms. It's really good movie. It's not a Friday the 13th film, but it is a meta slasher based in real life times of the actors playing themselves. Crazy fans
it
stalking them
really
and
is.
taking them out. But
It's a love letter, as Deborah said. So it really is a
is,
love letter
yes.
to the fans.
Yeah, Deborah Voorhees. Yep, absolutely is a love letter. It's a great film. You should check it out if you haven't seen it already. But and Jimmy, your book, A Bloody Halloween, I mentioned it was did I mention, let me start that part over. Jimmy, your book, A Bloody Halloween, is available on Amazon for purchase. Is it available anywhere else?
Yeah, any legit online bookstore. But I do want to add real quick, I've found recently, like on eBay and little places like that, selling for, 30, 25, 30, $40. And, you can get it for $7, $8 from Amazon or any, like Barnes and
Okay.
Noble, any online legit bookstore.
So avoid eBay. It sounds like they're scalping the price.
Yeah, like I don't get that, but yeah, they're doing it.
So what's a quick synopsis on A Bloody Halloween?
Yeah, well, it's about this family, mostly this kid and his brother, and their Halloween in 1993 in East Tennessee, and they come across an abandoned house, find some treasures that they're interested in, and little do they know the figure that has been locked away in a sanitarium used to reside in that very house has literally, like Michael Myers, come home to kill, and he wants his stuff back. It's a chase. It's a cat and mouse story with a lot of scares and a lot of early 90s feel and friendship feel, kind of like It for the kids and their relationships to survive. And it's really good. It turns psychological into pure slasher at the end. I think people will like it. And I got a sequel.
Sounds excellent. You got a sequel in the works, and you got a
In the works.
screenplay also that has been written. So who knows? Maybe we'll see it on the big screen.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah, we'll keep us up to date on the sequel. I'm going to put the link for the eBay, or not the eBay. We're going to avoid the eBay. I'm going to put the link for the Amazon in the description here below of this episode for those who want to check out A Bloody Halloween by my guest, Jimmy Presley. Jimmy, thank you for coming on to Terror Talk and talking about my all-time favorite movie, not just in the franchise, but ever made in any franchise, Friday the 13th, Part 3.
Yeah, always a pleasure. I appreciate it. And thank you. And yeah, Friday the 13th, Part 3. I mean, you can't go wrong. So yeah,
Nope,
thank you.
You really can't, But have a good evening. Avoid those woods.
Was I supposed to say it back? No. Have a
No,
good evening.